Well, good afternoon. This is Wednesday afternoon. Got off work a little while ago. Got home around 11:30 or so. Looks like they're installing fiber optics in the neighbors. And it's kind of interesting to watch all of this because it's the way that modern business works. Probably has worked that way for a long time. I've just never paid any attention to it. One thing I want to show you is my dog Fluffy, who is very curious about things outside right now. As you can see. Hey, Fluffy! Fluffy! There we go. There's Fluffy. Anyhow, the way it works is that Verizon doesn't have anything directly to do with hooking up any fiber optic cables or anything else. What they do is they contract out to another company, which works independently of them. So they don't have any idea who's installing it, whether they're qualified, where they come from, and so on. If you take a look at the people that are installing this cable, you realize that probably a lot of them are illegal, and it's very difficult to say what their status is. But they're working for a living. I don't begrudge them of it, and I do understand how the situation is. One of the things that we forget to think about is that economic policies have very grave consequences. When a country's economy is destroyed by the economic policies of a great power, then there is no job. There's no water and sewage disposal system, no water and sewage treatment plants, no garbage pickup on a regular basis, things of that nature, things that can cause disease and very profound physical and moral poverty. And it's something that you need to think about. We need to think about when we make our decisions on how we treat other nations. So when you think about it, these people are here because this is where the work is. If this is where the work is and there's no work where they came from, what other choice do they have? And the same would be in the other direction. If there was no work here, which is increasingly becoming the case, even though there is a jobless recovery going on, which I don't quite understand the meaning of that, but that's what's being told to us in this news speak, political speak era that we live in. If the situation was turned around the opposite direction, you'd see the same thing happen. You'd see Americans, citizens, crossing the border south into Mexico, Central America, and South America to work there. And who knows, maybe it's the case. It's just not being reported. So, I take it for granted that I'm not being told everything. Not everything's being reported. And every time I see a politician open his or her mouth to proclaim to me some sort of truth that they actually believe, then I have to ask myself, is that really true? Probably not. Let me find out what the truth really is so I can decide for myself how I need to carry out and go forward with the rest of my life. This is very difficult in an age where laws are passed by the hundreds, where federal legislation is looked upon as a cure-all for just about anything. It's a panacea for just about every person that gets nervous about something. Now, there was a very tragic situation, a horrifying situation, where this young lady was gang raped and beaten up by these young boys, and very, very horribly brutalized. People stood by and watched. Some cheered on. Some took photographs and movies on their webcams and cell phone cameras, and some had camcorders and so forth, I understand. So all that stuff is on the internet. This is what we're facing today. We're witnessing pretty much what amounts to the downfall of a great society. Well, I don't know if it was great. Some people will say it was a rotten society anyway, so it deserves everything that it gets. I don't know. You take a look at it, folks. Ask yourself if you want to live somewhere else, because regardless of how it got this way, this is still a pretty good place to live. We need to do something to rectify the situation. stop all this nonsense, bring about the reindoctrination and reeducation of the next generation, so that they're less likely to carry out these very brutal acts that just go beyond the imagination. Yeah, that's pretty much all I got to say this afternoon. It really bothered me when I heard about that, and also the answer to it by a politician who said that he would look into, when he went back to Washington, and seeing if there would be any federal legislation that could be passed to deal with people who were so-called bystanders, bystanding witnesses in a brutal act and assault like that, if they couldn't be held responsible. So you see, it's the old panacea all over again. We'll just pass a law, and then that'll make it all right. As long as we pass a law, that makes us look good, I guess, and makes us have the moral high ground. I don't know. I just shake my head. The insanity of the world is just too much for me. And I'm overwhelmed by it. I really am. I don't consider that there is any reasonably good outcome to any of this. However, I'm going to live from day to day, and I'm not going to let the happenings of the day affect the comedy that I appreciate and the jokes and the good times, because the bad times are coming anyway. Nothing I can do about it. So might as well enjoy myself while I can. I would suggest that you all do the same thing, because it's going to get really interesting in the next 20 years.